My 34M wife, 33F, sat on the lap of another man, 40M. My wife of over 6 years, been together longer, just not married, sat on the lap of another man this past Sunday during a Super Bowl party we threw at our house. This man that I mentioned is actually a good friend, but he's no stranger. We've all known each other for many years due to him being the boyfriend of one of my wife's best friends, who was also at the party. Here's how the situation went. We were all sitting outside watching the game when along comes my wife, who is fairly intoxicated at this point, and starts shooting the shit. She then, without any reason, proceeds to sit on the lap of our friend. It wasn't sexual by any means, but there were other seats available, so I was confused as to what was going on. Even without there being seats, I obviously would have had the same reaction. I couldn't really tell you how long time went by, but I audibly told her to sit down on the bench that was open next to him and asked what she was doing. I didn't make a thing of it, so nothing sparked out of the situation at that moment. That was until later that night when I confronted them both as he was leaving. I brought up to her in front of him how I thought it was very inappropriate, and as a married woman, she shouldn't have done that. They both apologized and stated it's nothing like that, which I believe. I know it would never come down to it between them two like that, but the issue I had was just the inappropriate nature of it and how it makes me look as a husband and her as a wife. Now, here's when things take a turn. My wife then begins to twist the situation around and start saying how it's actually not that big of a deal and I'm just being insecure and more or less a quote unquote little bitch. At this point, things turned up and we got into it. She refused to acknowledge how I felt and claimed it didn't seem as bad as I made it and how she wouldn't care if her friend sat on my lap or how her friend doesn't mind it. I repeatedly told her I would never allow that because I'm a married man and I couldn't care less if her friend doesn't mind it. We went to bed with not much resolved. We spoke the following morning and she agreed it was wrong and apologized again. Now, here's the reason why I decided to bring this up here, which I wasn't planning to. We mildly spoke about it today, and she brought up how she finally got around to speaking to her friend, the friend of the boyfriend whose lap she sat on, and apologized to her. She said how her friend said it was no big deal and they know it was never meant to be sexual. She then proceeded to tell me how I got her all flustered and made her think she should have apologized to her friend like she did something really wrong. At this point, I just sat there and stared at her briefly, thinking to myself, am I crazy here? Am I truly the only one who doesn't see this as a problem? I let it go at that point, but I just can't shake off how I'm still feeling about it. I can't be the only one who deems this inappropriate, right? AITA.
It's inappropriate.
We agree it's
even
inappropriate.
if it's not sexual. I wouldn't like confront them as a unit. It would just be one of those. It would be a conversation at home, like, "Hey, don't do that." I wouldn't have like confronted them at the party as if I caught them as hooking up.
It's a little.
That feels weird, but
it's weird. But is it a sin? I thought it was kind of a good detective move. And
asking them together.
Yeah, just to get a vibe check. Just like, hey, yeah, I just wanted to see what was up. Just really making eye contact with a guy, like just checking. And if
I didn't know you guys were this close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he brings up that she was a little intoxicated, and maybe people act a little bit differently when they're intoxicated. But was he intoxicated?
OP?
No, the lap, the man.
I guess we don't really know that.
Because maybe there's some sort of forgiveness there. Like, obviously, it's wrong. Let's get that out of the way. She shouldn't be sitting on another man's lap.
Yeah, let's get into the wrongness.
Let's it doesn't matter if they're married or even if they're in a relationship. Just don't do it. But if she is very intoxicated and she's just, everyone's having fun, maybe she just does it without thinking too much about it.
Sure.
And then she apologizes later, and she should apologize later. But at the same time, if he's not drunk, then he should be like, what are you doing? Please get off.
Agreed.
Like the fact that he allowed her to continue to sit on his lap is also kind of something that bothers me.
I don't trust him.
Well, my read of the facts.
If he's okay with that.
Well, my read of the facts is this happened very quickly. She sat on his lap and then OP was like, I actually think you could sit right there on the bench within seconds.
You think so?
I guess that's how I read it, right? OP says they were confused as to what was going on. I audibly told her to sit down on the bench that was open next to him and asked what she was doing. I feel like it played out fairly quickly.
Okay. I did read it as longer.
Well, if he didn't say something, I guess that's the question is, would the guy have been like, what are you doing? Get off.
Right. I think even, well, I'm thinking like application in my own life. If I even saw that about to happen, I'd be like, what are you doing? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like if a wife's friend was about to sit on me, it wouldn't even be like, wait till she sat down. It would be,
the fact that he even had to say anything. If she sat down on my lap and she's not my wife, split second. What are you doing? Get off.
Yeah. Before she even sat down.
Okay, in her slight defense, I don't know where I got this. Maybe I got it from a comment, but I think it was more of a knee sit on the knee, not actually on the lap. In other words, not butt to crotch.
Same. What is he, Santa? You know?
Yeah.
What is he Santa?
Yeah.
Is there
my wife can't even sit on Santa's lap. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said, so I was curious this. You seem to agree that it wasn't sexual. For me, even on the knee and stuff, like the connotation is sexual.
You're right.
I wouldn't really be comfortable. I mean, obviously, if
I was saying not sexual because that's what they said.
Yeah, you were just echoing it.
I agree with where you're headed.
If a woman sat like this on me, I would take it as a single woman. I would take it as a come on of sorts. You know, I'd be like, yeah, she's into me, and this is like an intimate.
It's a flirty move.
It's a flirty move.
It definitely is a flirty move, and the fact that the other woman is like, hey, it's not a big deal. You know, I don't want to sound like a prude, but it should be a big deal to her too. You know, so.
Well, well, to me, why wouldn't it be a big deal is because, if I was about to say, if I sat on Anna's lap, that's not quite the same math. That would be like Danny's having a mental breakdown. Right? Because a man on a woman's lap is like the math.
No, I mean,
Anna's lap would be like, yeah, let's all circle around Danny.
No, but like, in other words, so the security there, it might be a little bit like, because we don't know how close they are. Right? Mm-hmm. We don't know how close they are. So the way I read that, she was like, yeah, it was no big deal. You're acting like a fool. You made a fool of yourself. Our relationship isn't threatened by your come on. You should be embarrassed. We're not threatened by it. You don't even need to apologize because you're just acting like a fool. We're not that close to you. So, the betrayal aspect to me only becomes a factor if they're like close friends, where then it's like, well, what the fuck are you doing? We're going on a trip to Denver together. Now you're sitting on my husband's lap. But if they're not that close, it's kind of like, yeah, you're the idiot in my friend group. And essentially what you did was embarrass your own husband and elevated my husband, made him seem desirable by blatantly flirting with him. Like, yeah, you don't have to apologize to me because you're just an idiot.
Yeah. I think that's a potential angle for sure.
Well, I kind of read it a little bit differently.
Okay.
In that, she goes and it's days later or something. And she says, hey, I really want to apologize for sitting on your boyfriend's lap.
Which is a necessary call to make.
And just to be polite, the other girl is like, oh, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Like, she just wants to get out of the conversation. Right. It's kind of a weird thing to be like, okay, I want to apologize for this thing that happened a couple days ago for a few seconds. And you naturally just like, okay, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Instead of making it a big thing, you're like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah. It's just easier for her to be like, don't worry about it. It's no big thing. Yeah. But then the other woman took that as like, maybe it isn't a big thing. When
that was
is.
A weird, like, how dare you make me apologize to my friend? Like, yeah, but you should apologize.
Honestly, everything was fine. Even her sitting on his lap it's bad. Maybe she's a little drunk and she just did it. And the important thing is, like, he confronted her. She apologized. If it ended there, everything's fine. But the fact that after the fact, she's trying to say that he overreacted, that's where we're starting to get into trouble.
She weaponized it.
I
think your read is better. I like your read. Mm-hmm. I think your read is more accurate. The person was like, look, she's acknowledging it. She's saying sorry. There's no need to like kick dust in her face. She got it.
Yeah.
She got it.
Let's move on.
But then instead of taking that basically graceful understanding that was deployed, she weaponizes that and uses it to minimize. Mm-hmm. Fucking dirty move.
Yeah. What's confusing is like, everyone else, just a normal response would be like relieved that the friend was like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, oh, I'm so glad I called her. You know, she said it was no big deal. Don't worry about it. What a relief. We can put that behind us. It is very red flaggy to get angry that she was cool with it. You know?
Yeah, well, she's
like, did you want her to be jealous?
I guess I also don't understand because she's already talked to her husband and said you're overreacting, but then she called to apologize after that?
No, I think so. They get into it. She refused to acknowledge how I felt, but then that night, so there's a question here, and we could get into the alcohol aspect, but confronting someone who's inebriated is generally absolutely stupid. You're wasting your time.
Wait till the next day.
Wait till the next day. You know, because I also feel like people are if they're already kind of a defensive person and they're drunk, and that's how you get into no undo button. That's why I don't like fucking alcohol though, because then I'm like, oh, so I have to fucking babysit you and hold back because you don't get to be accountable or responsible because you got to disappear into your fucking booze land. Anyway.
Yeah, and I say she was drunk, but that's never an excuse for her actions, you know? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I understand as someone who's been drunk before why she might have done it, but it still doesn't excuse
But
that.
yeah, here's the thing though. It doesn't sound like she's super drunk.
Yeah. No,
Was she blackout when she did it?
I don't think she was blackout.
If she's just like feeling tipsy, that's a bigger red flag.
No, I mean, the crime is the crime. I guess so he confronts her, right, in front of the guy at the party, which I actually like just as a vibe check for cheating, just a little cheat scan. Then things turn up. She fights it that night. But when she wakes up, we went to bed with not much resolved. It's kind of like that's what happens. But then the next morning she agreed it was wrong and apologized. But then she doubles back because she then went to the friend. And the friend said it was no big deal, and they know it was never meant to be sexual. And I think that's why I wanted to fixate on that too. And I'm like, I don't think you get to choose that. I don't think how that works. That's not how that works. You don't get to sit on a pier as a heterosexual, sit on a pier's lap, and then be like, well, it's not sexual. I'm sorry, but like, it's sexual.
I think you put it right to me where you don't get to choose that. Because as the other person in the relationship, I get to let you know what I'm comfortable and not comfortable with.
Sure.
You know, there are probably couples out there in the world who they're all sitting on each other's laps, and
they're called swingers.
They don't even have to be swingers. They're just comfortable together. You know, I'm not that person, and that's how I feel. And when you do that, it's disrespectful to me. I don't like, but that's how I feel. That's just how I feel. So
I can find it a little erotic. I kind of understand it. It's kind of like dancing with fire. You know what I mean? In other words, like seeing my chick kind of like flirt with someone else, like that kind of makes something burn inside me. And I kind of like that. But
whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the key here is no alcohol, because that's impaired judgment. It has to be done with surgical like understanding and precision of what's happening. We're playing a game. It's a game. To me, that's what's hot. You could even argue that it's maybe a little disrespectful to the guy, right? Because he's a pawn in a game.
Being used to turn on my boyfriend.
You put it that way.
The one with the gold chain.
No, I mean, I've done.
He's visibly excited right now.
Yeah, I've done stuff like that because if I really trust someone, I really trust. You know, I really trust. Not with alcohol though, because that just gets too complicated. But anyway, that's clearly now what's happening, and I do think there's no way around it that's disrespectful.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing is a different relationship where you're both kind of on board with each other and you're playing games together.
Yes,
and no one's disrespecting anyone. But this sounds like he really has a problem with it, and that should matter to her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing here is that then so she wants to use this as evidence against him and invalidate his feelings. And I just think it's like, look, you drank, and people do this a lot. People are very guilty when they drink, you know. I forgot what I felt bad. So I went on that mammoth trip, which, you guys didn't come. Ouchie.
Pics looked great.
Thank you. And yeah, no, we had a great time, but it was a good reminder because, I don't drink. I forget how it works. I honestly do, just because I don't think about it. I just don't think about how people act when they get drunk. And, I was there with my two good friends and they didn't do anything wrong. And I try to really say that to them. I'm like, it's not that you guys did anything wrong. It's just that it's hard for me. It's inherently unequal for me to be in an interaction with a drunk person or a high person. It's like, frustrating. It's like you're like 70, 60% there. I'm 100% here, bro.
Yeah, I'm dialed in.
I'm dialed in. Like, and it's hard. It almost feels like they're not there. Like they're not present. It'd be just like if I was like just like on my fucking phone. You'd be like, well, I'm like talking to you and you're like on your fucking phone.
Yeah.
And it's not fun for you to be the responsible one at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it made me realize like I have to structure because I don't ever want to police other adults or I know other people enjoy alcohol. I'm the one who can't enjoy it. I'm the one who will have 10 drinks and act like a fucking maniac. You know what I mean? So that's on me. So I was like, maybe next trip I'll DJ during that time or just find a way to not be so conversational.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go around and sit on people's laps.
Yeah, let's maybe get some flames going. Fuck up people's shit, But
I mean, I had a situation because, when you're in the comedy community, you'll go out with like your sketch team or you go out with other people who are comedians. And I went out with a girl who's on a sketch team with me and we shared an Uber home because,
why not?
Ubers are expensive, right?
Yeah, they're crazy now.
But obviously she was a little drunk. She was in the back of the Uber with me. And then she just like laid her head down on my lap.
Oh, that feels uncomfortable.
Like she was like she was like feeling car sick. She laid her head down on my lap. And I was like, no, like you can't.
Yeah.
Please get your, like I felt guilty just having her head touch my leg.
Yeah.
Also liability for throw up. I mean, that's a throw up. That's a throw up crotch.
Even if even if who knows what she feels towards you, even if it's like, oh, Nick's so fatherly. Even that is just like, and that's your side of the car.
It's probably closer to that than yeah. But even still, it's like no.
Yeah, that's come on, that's head on crotch. Yeah, I mean, I think this is really messed up. I think I don't know. I hate alcohol. I think it's a drug that makes people crazy. We don't even call it a drug. It's widely available, and it makes people do things like this that are like really fucked up. And then it's like, and I think it also just causes so much like grief. That was the end of that story. Is that I felt bad, right? I felt bad because like I like kind of not stormed off, but I just kind of left the interactions because people were drunk and acting like not even acting crazy. They were just acting a little drunk. They weren't doing anything wrong.
Right.
But I was like, I don't want to be around it. And then that made me feel like a dick, And I said, I actually know what I said. Something I was like, you guys need to stop singing, or like, you can't sing. Maybe I said you can't. I said you can't sing. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, I was kind of a dick last night. But then I forgot they were all drunk. So they were all into like a shame haze. I was like, I don't need to apologize. They're the ones feeling guilty. I could tell them anything. They don't even know what happened.
Gaslight them to high heaven.
So, but yeah, I guess this is what frustrates me because I think it's a confusing thing. Society is kind of gaslighting us. Bars everywhere, alcohol everywhere. It's culinary. Get the wine pairing. Then it's like you drink and you do something wrong. Well, that is on you still. And it's like, well, okay, but there is a system here that's pushing us to consume this insane drug.
I mean, I totally relate to that because I have social anxiety. And if I'm going out, I'm going to feel better if I have something to drink. But at the same time, like I have to realize that I'm not going to be myself completely.
Sure.
Especially if I'm drunk,
Yeah.
I guess the final point of that is whether you're sober or drunk, like you are responsible for everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can never be an excuse to be like, hey, I just had a couple drinks and, give me a break.
Yeah. It's almost like on this husband's behalf, like almost a nice throw in for his wife. It's like, she was drunk, so that's why she did this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's generous because the action itself was bad.
It gives
like, let me give her this excuse.
Yeah.
She was drunk.
But there are plenty of relationships like this, especially before you're married, where people will just feel like they should be forgiven because they were drunk.
Right.
And no, Like,
No.
you should be forgiven when you apologize and you feel bad for what you've done.
You take ownership.
You take ownership for what you've done. You shouldn't be forgiven because you were drunk.
Yeah, that bottle of vodka can apologize to me. You can.
You can. Well, it's interesting because I was talking about this recently with a friend from Arizona, and like, yeah, I had a crush when I was in a relationship. I had a crush. I had a crush on someone else, and it was a girl. I remember my monitor, like she was like, her face was directly to the right, so I could look at her face all fucking day, and so I was like, oh my god, I have like a sickening crush for her, And so what I did was I just pushed my monitor over so I couldn't look her in the eye all day. That was like the first thing I did to like start to wean off this crush. And I don't think I did anything wrong. I developed a crush. I don't think I did anything irresponsible or crazy. I think I talked to her and she was a pretty girl and I looked her in the eyes. If I was drinking, would I have sat on her lap or whatever? You get it. Would I have done something inappropriate? I'm like, yeah, maybe. Sure. Why not? My judgment would be impaired. That's like the whole thing, So I
throwing that computer off the table and even on a full face stare.
Stared her right down. Let's have a staring contest, babe.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's like, I don't know. I think people wrestle with this. Like, is it cheating or is it bad to develop feelings for someone? And I'm like, no, I think that's just life.
Right. But
I think that's a good point
actions.
Because when you drink, your inhibitions are gone.
Yes.
And it's totally possible that guy's wife just thought the other guy was cute or he was nice to her or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
All of these things
comfortable. Sure.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Look at his arms.
Which adds this other layer of it where it's like, it came from somewhere.
Exactly.
It came from somewhere.
It came from
that's
somewhere.
Where you're in
Agreed.
trouble. So
I like that.
Yeah.
AITA for being mad at my wife for sitting on the lap of another man. I think OP is totally valid here, and she's minimizing and denying, and for that, it's not the asshole she is.
Yep.
Yep.
Boom.
On board.